Good morning. Trump officially has a trade war with Canada now. Tariffs are climbing to 50% on roughly $20 billion in goods after last minute talks collapsed while you were asleep, and both sides are digging in. House Democrats are quietly mapping out a wave of investigations for a potential 2027 majority, and Trump himself has now admitted that he expects to be impeached if Democrats win. Also today, Kash Patel's girlfriend just lost a defamation suit, one of the several cases she filed over foreign agent claims. Trump spent last night ripping into Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Thomas Massie in a bizarre late-night tirade and a full rundown of everything else, from a record jump in exemptions and vaccines among kindergartners to an ICE agent's arrest to a growing lettuce recall now linked to nearly 11,000 illnesses. Lots to cover, and before we get into it, I just want to say thank you all for your support. I'm working on some very exciting projects, including a live show that's set to start soon. We're ramping up, not slowing down. If you can, subscribe today, support this work. Independent journalism can only survive with your support. Here's the news, and let's get into it. I want to start with the story that broke over the weekend. The United States and Canada are now in an actual trade war. Last-minute talks collapsed just before Trump's midnight Friday deadline, triggering 50% U.S. tariffs on roughly $20 billion of Canadian goods, about 5% of everything Canada exports south of the border. Prime Minister Mark Carney issued the following statement as the deal fell through. He said that he was suspending negotiations, recalling Canada's negotiators, and vowed Canada, quote, will match those tariffs dollar for dollar to protect our workers and businesses. U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer claimed Washington had offered, quote, significant tariff reductions on steel, aluminum, autos, and lumber, plus a, quote, historic economic and national security partnership. McCartney confirmed that last-minute U.S. changes to the terms were, quote, unfair, uneconomic, and called into question the reliability of any deal. The breakdown caps a relationship that has steadily deteriorated since Trump returned back to office, driven by disputes over Canadian alcohol bans, auto and dairy quotas, and steel and aluminum duties. Trump himself emphasized this week that the failed deal would have been, quote, great for our farmers by loosening Canada's dairy import restrictions. Here's the part that should worry people on both sides of the border. The tariffs Trump is now imposing rely on a little-known, never-before-used 1930s law called Section 338. Unlike his other tariff authorities, this one appears to carry no time limit, meaning these duties could stay in place indefinitely unless a future president removes them. The move is already expected to face legal challenges, and the target list reaches far beyond the dairy, alcohol, and auto sectors at the heart of the dispute, spanning close to 500 items from smartphones and video game consoles to clothing, jewelry, furniture, and even antiques. Trump has so far spared major Canadian exports like energy, critical minerals, and fish. Canadian officials and businesses are already bracing for the fallout. Carney says his government will roll out, quote, additional measures to support Canadian workers and businesses on top of nearly $25 billion in support already provided over the past 18 months, while insisting Canada's economic growth is, quote, accelerating, and that Ottawa will, quote, not allow any nation to determine our future. It comes as we're getting a preview of what a Democratic House majority could look like next year. House Democrats are quietly assembling a sprawling investigative agenda for if they retake in the majority in November, with nearly a dozen early targets ranging from the war in Iran and Trump's family business dealings to the White House ballroom, his Jeffrey Epstein ties, and ICE's immigration enforcement. Progressives like Judiciary's Jamie Raskin called impeachment, quote, a tool, and note most of the caucus has voted for it before. Leadership figures like Pete Aguilar insist impeachment, quote, just doesn't exist as a topic. Oversight ranking member Robert Garcia frames the focus as, quote, Trump corruption and Trump family corruption. The White House says it is prepared to handle oversight regardless of who controls Congress, and DOJ has already issued a memo asserting executive privilege that can shield some presidential communications with private advisors. Some members, like Josh Gottheimer, are worried about a third impeachment after two failed Senate trials, and joking that, quote, the third movie is never good. But Trump himself waded into this last night and says that he does expect to be impeached if Democrats take over.
I'm going to be impeached. They're going to impeach me. They have no idea why. I saw today a congressman said on one of the shows, we're going to impeach President Trump. We're going to impeach him. Oh, really? Why? The person was asking. A neutral commentator for a change. I like neutral commentators. Oh, I see. You're going to impeach him. Why? Well, I don't know. I don't know.
So we'll have to see what happens on that front. But Democratic control would hand over multiple committees, oversight, intelligence, judiciary, foreign affairs, subpoena power, and the administration is preparing for it. White House lawyers are briefing cabinet secretaries on how to respond to subpoenas and how to respond in court. Senator Adam Schiff, who chaired intelligence during Trump's first impeachment, said Democrats are weighing a workaround if the administration blocks access. And let's turn to a story that's been quietly playing out in courtrooms across the country. The girlfriend of FBI Director Kash Patel, 27-year-old country singer Alexis Wilkins, has lost a defamation suit against the former Republican Senate candidate Sam Parker, whom she accused of falsely implying in a viral Twitter thread with over 1.6 million views that she was a foreign agent sent to manipulate and compromise Patel. A federal judge in Utah ruled that the case didn't belong in the jurisdiction and that the decision drew little attention since neither party commented. She's also suing MS Now in Tennessee over a report alleging that she'd repeatedly asked FBI security detail to drive her friends home after nights out in Nashville. Let's run through the rest of the stories quickly. Trump spent last night lashing out at Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, and Thomas Massie. After Carlson met with the two of them, he branded them, quote, losers all, called Carlson, quote, totally irrelevant and low IQ, while demanding he take a cognitive test. He dismissed Greene as, quote, highly neurotic, claimed she turned on him only because he stopped taking her calls, ending with praise be to Allah. Meanwhile, new CDC data shows kindergarten MMR vaccinations have dipped slightly to 92.4%. Non-medical exemptions jumped 17% in a single year, from 3.6 worldwide to 4.2 nationwide, the largest such increase ever recorded, with at least 280,000 kindergartners now missing the MMR shot. Tina Peters, the convicted Colorado election clerk whose prison sentence was commuted by Democratic Governor Jared Polis in May, traveled to D.C. this week for meetings with Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and DOJ Civil Rights Chief Harmeet Dillon, pitching a plan to invoke emergency powers and assert unprecedented federal control over elections ahead of the midterms. This weekend's Freedom 250 Grand Prix IndyCar race around the National Mall has drawn sponsorship from corporations with major businesses before the federal government, including Boeing, SpaceX, Delta, Shell, and Amazon, fitting into a broader Trump-era pattern of corporate money flowing into opaque nonprofits around events like the inauguration, the White House ballroom, the UFC match, and now IndyCar. The FDA says recalled Taylor Farms lettuce from a Mexican facility may have actually reached 9 more states and territories than previously known. In addition, an ICE agent, 58-year-old Thomas Bailey, was jailed overnight, charged with unauthorized entry after allegedly breaking into his ex-girlfriend's apartment in Covington, Louisiana. And it comes as new unearthed video shows ICE agents using vile language and racist language to describe a target.
Whose backpack is that? Tom's backpack?
Did you?
Yeah.
There was a guy, I'm pretty sure he's wet. He was just sitting in that minivan.
There's one right there.
Okay, great talk. The real QR stuff.
It looked like a tonk in the driver's seat.
Probably was.
That's real. That's a real video. That's everything for right now. A trade war with Canada that just went from threat to reality. A president who's already conceding he'll be impeached if his opponents win. A full slate of other stories from the courtroom to the campaign trail. Before you go, thanks again. If you can, subscribe to support this work, and I'll see you soon for more.